Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Always exciting to be back. What are we diving into today?
Well, this time it's something you specifically requested.
Oh, I like where this is going. The people have spoken.
They certainly have, and they want a closer look at how Arizona manages its state-owned lands.
That's a big one. Lots of ground to cover, literally.
It is. Luckily, we've got the Arizona State Land Department's annual report for FY 2024.
The treasure trove of land management. I've had a peek. It's fascinating stuff.
And let me tell you, this document is way more interesting than it sounds.
Oh, I bet. What kind of interesting are we talking about?
We're not just talking about acres here. It's fascinating how this report reveals a strategy for securing Arizona's future, not just balancing a budget year by year.
Right. It's like they're playing a long game with millions of acres.
A very long game with very high stakes.
And speaking of millions, the first thing that caught my eye was the sheer amount of revenue generated. $361.6 million in just 1 year.
Now, that's a headline number.
Oh.
But as always, the devil is in the details. Where's all that money going?
That's the key question. And it's not just about the money itself, but where it goes.
Exactly. Over $346 million from land sales and long-term leases goes right into the Permanent Land Endowment Trust Fund. It's designed to support essential services like schools and hospitals in your community for years to come.
That's huge. So it's not like this money just disappears into some general fund.
Oh, no. It's earmarked for specific things that directly impact Arizonans.
That's good to know. So it's really an investment in the future.
Precisely. It's about ensuring stable, long-term funding for the services you rely on, not being solely reliant on taxes,
And it's not just this trust fund, right? There's more money generated that goes directly to supporting schools and other institutions.
Absolutely. We're talking an additional $53 million from things like leases and interest. And all of that flowing directly to schools and other vital institutions across Arizona.
So this revenue stream generated from state-owned land is really playing a crucial role in funding Arizona's present, not just its future.
Now, that's a key takeaway. It's easy to get caught up in the big picture, but this has real-time impact.
Now let's talk about those land auctions. 13 successful auctions this past fiscal year.
13, that's quite a few.
Yeah, and they pulled in a cool $242 million.
Okay, now those are some serious numbers. Tell me more about these auctions.
This isn't your typical real estate deal. We're talking about large parcels of land being scooped up.
I imagine these aren't your everyday home buyers, right?
Exactly. Often it's developers and businesses looking for prime locations.
And the prices they're willing to pay, that's a strong indicator of the demand for Arizona land.
Absolutely. For example, 165-acre plot in Maricopa County sold for $63 million to No VVA Holdings.
Wow, that's a significant chunk of change for a single plot of land. What kind of impact does this high demand have on the state's overall land strategy, especially as Arizona continues to grow?
It's a balancing act, that's for sure.
It makes planning and resource management absolutely critical.
While these auctions generate immediate revenue, the ASLD is also thinking long-term.
Which is essential, especially in a state like Arizona.
And that leads us to their initiatives for water, the environment, and ensuring the state's resilience in the face of challenges like wildfires.
All interconnected and all crucial for Arizona's future.
It's interesting how they're thinking about that long game, especially with something as critical as water in Arizona.
You can't talk about Arizona's future without talking about water.
Absolutely. And the report highlights these ongoing hydrology studies in Butler Valley.
Those are important. Water is essential for Arizona's future, and those studies are really digging deep to understand the availability of groundwater in that region.
So what are they looking at specifically?
They're trying to answer crucial questions like, how much water is really there? How sustainable are the current usage patterns? It's about getting a clear picture before making big decisions about land use.
That makes sense. You don't want to build a house on sand, or in this case, on a depleted aquifer.
Exactly. And speaking of responsible land use, the report also talks about their efforts in fire prevention.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one, especially with increasing wildfire risks we're seeing.
It's a huge concern. But they've partnered with the Department of Forestry and Fire Management to treat over 7,000 acres of state trust land.
That's a significant chunk of land. What are they doing exactly to prevent fires?
It's all about proactive mitigation. Things like controlled burns, clearing brush, creating fire breaks. It's about protecting Arizona's land and its people.
And let's not forget about the need for housing. Affordable housing is a key concern for many Arizonans.
It's a major issue, and the report sheds light on how the ASLD is tackling this challenge.
So what are they doing? Are they just opening up more land for development?
They are, but they're also getting creative with projects like the North Peoria Gateway Zoning Bank.
Zoning bank. That sounds a bit technical. What exactly is that?
It sounds complicated, but it's actually about creating more vibrant, walkable neighborhoods. Essentially, it allows for more flexibility in planning.
So potentially leading to more mixed-use developments with apartments, townhouses, shops, and restaurants all within walking distance.
Exactly. It's about creating a more sustainable and dynamic living experience while addressing the need for diverse housing options.
And it's not just about housing. The report also highlights the ASLD's efforts to attract major corporations to Arizona. They've invested over $1.5 million in due diligence to work with the Arizona Commerce Authority on that.
Attracting those big names has a ripple effect.
Like what kind of impact can attracting these large companies have?
It brings jobs, diversifies the economy, and boosts Arizona's overall competitiveness. It's about strategically shaping Arizona's economic future.
It sounds like they're playing chess with the state's future.
In a way, they are. But let's not forget about the heart of this whole report, that $361.6 million in revenue. Where does all that money actually go?
That's right. We've talked about these projects, but the money funds them. Where does it all go?
It goes right back into supporting those essential services that make Arizona tick. The largest portion, over $248 million, goes directly to common schools. That's your local K-12 schools.
That's a significant investment in education. And it's not just K-12, right? Universities get a slice of that pie, too.
Absolutely. The University of Arizona, those historic normal schools and institutions like the School of Mines all receive funding from these land management efforts. For example, the University of Arizona received $1,391,069 in FY 2024.
It all goes back to bolstering higher education, which ultimately benefits the state as a whole.
Exactly. And remember that additional $53 million we talked about earlier from leases and interest, a large portion of that goes directly to other vital institutions across Arizona.
It's amazing how this revenue stream is woven into the fabric of Arizona's financial landscape. Who are some of these other key beneficiaries?
We're talking hospitals, correctional facilities, various other institutions that are critical to the social fabric of Arizona.
These funds really do ensure the well-being of all Arizonans. Do we have any specific examples of those dollar amounts?
For instance, the state hospital received over $6.7 million in FY 2024. The Miners Hospital, a nod to Arizona's rich history, received $738,109.
Every dollar tells a story. It's fascinating.
Even the buildings that house the legislative, executive, and judicial branches receive funding. It highlights how interconnected this revenue stream is.
Absolutely. It's not just about the money, it's also about the land itself. The report provides a breakdown of how much land each beneficiary manages, and the numbers are staggering.
It's a massive responsibility, managing over 9.5 million acres of state trust land. Understanding who manages what is crucial for transparency and accountability.
So who gets the biggest slice of that land pie?
Common schools manage the lion's share, over 8 million acres. That's more land than the entire state of Maryland.
Wow, that's a huge responsibility. How does the ASLD even begin to ensure those lands are being managed effectively and responsibly?
It's a huge undertaking, managing that much land. But the ASLD has systems in place.
Like what? What kind of systems?
They've got land use plans, environmental reviews, regular audits, all to make sure the land is being managed properly.
So it's not a case of out of sight, out of mind. They're keeping a close eye on things.
You got it. And it's not a one-size-fits-all approach either. The report actually breaks down the different types of land use, shows how they vary across the state.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, for instance, over 8 million acres are dedicated to grazing leases.
That's a lot of land for cattle. Shows Arizona's ranching heritage for sure.
It does. But managing that land responsibly, that takes careful planning.
Yeah, you don't want overgrazing. Got to protect those water resources. Make sure the land stays healthy for the long term.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And, when done well, grazing can actually benefit the ecosystem.
It's about finding that balance, right, between economic activity and being good stewards of the environment.
You got it. And speaking of economic activity, the report also mentions commercial leases. They generate significant revenue for the state.
Oh, yeah, those commercial leases. We're talking retail spaces, industrial parks, right?
And don't forget those massive solar energy projects we talked about earlier.
Oh, right. Those are huge. It's pretty amazing how the ASLD is shaping the landscape of Arizona. deciding where businesses can set up shop, where houses can be built, how these vast stretches of land can be used to generate revenue.
It's a big responsibility, that's for sure.
It really is. And while we're talking about things that are easy to overlook, what about those rights of way? The agreements that allow for roads, pipelines, utilities, all that stuff.
Ah, those rights of way.
Yeah.
Easy to forget about them until you need one.
Right. But you're right, they're essential.
They really are. They connect communities, facilitate commerce, and deliver those vital services.
It's amazing to think that even something like a right of way can generate revenue for the state.
Every little bit helps, and it all adds up. Every lease, every agreement, every decision contributes to that impressive $361.6 million in revenue.
And as we've discussed, that money goes right back into supporting essential services for all Arizonans.
It's a remarkable system when you think about it, designed to ensure that the benefits of Arizona's land are shared by all.
It's a legacy that will continue to shape the state for years to come. This report has been incredibly eye-opening, to say the least.
It's a story about stewardship, balancing those competing interests and planning for the future.
And as we've learned today, it's a story that impacts each and every one of us. If you're interested in exploring this further, and we encourage you to do so, we've included a link to the full report in the show notes. Dive in, explore the data, and see how this story unfolds in your own backyard. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep exploring the world around you.